Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the Virtual CISO Moment. Robert Duchesne joins us today. He is the founder and CEO of RD3 Technologies, where he focuses on securing the U.S. defense supply chain and critical infrastructure. He has deep expertise in cyber operations, governance, risk, and compliance, and has led security initiatives across organizations like Stanley Black & Decker, NIST's defense industrial base programs, and even supported national security missions early in his career. And he's worked on satellite systems in the Air Force to leading enterprise security operations, building a cybersecurity firm from the ground up. Robert, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Hey, I forgot how much I like that music. You get me rocking out there in the beginning.
I get people asking me if that's me playing, and I'm like, oh, heck no.
That's good. Good, I like it.
Yeah, I can't remember who does that. It's open. It's free use, whatever they call it. I was going to say open source, but I know
Yeah.
that's not right. It's free use. You just,
Oh, yeah.
limited licensing. But I mean, it's like a 4-minute song of just
No, I like
instrumental like that. It's actually pretty
Yeah.
cool. Maybe one of these days I'll just play the whole thing on here, and that'll be the episode. I'll just be like, this is the whole episode. Tell us about your story, how and why you got started in this great field, and bring us all the way up to what you're doing with RD3.
For sure. Yeah, it was kind of a weird start. As a kid, I liked messing with computers, like playing games and messing around, but I never thought I would be into IT. Like 100%, never thought I'd be into cyber. Um, really started off my career as trying to be a fireman. So I went to school to be a firefighter, became an EMT. I worked out in Compton, California, which was very interesting. Saw a lot of crazy stuff there. And I knew if I wanted to make it to like LA City or LA County Fire Department, I needed to go to the next step. So that's where I joined the United States Air Force. I wanted to join as special forces, but quickly found out I wasn't as cool as I thought I was a very good swimmer and runner. But right before leaving, spiral fractured my ankle on a dirt bike. So
Oh, gosh.
they're like, you can't jump out of planes anymore. So I was like, all right, well, what are my other options? And satellite operations was one, or drone systems operator was the other. So so I chose satellites, right? I love space. I always enjoyed space. So
So I have to ask. I mean, you enlisted in the Air Force, right? So you were
yes,
enlisted, and so
yes,
you went through San Antonio, Lackland, right?
correct. Yep.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but
Oh, I
every
love
time
this.
I hear this, it's just like I went through Lackland in '89, and I made it back to Lackland for the first time since then, last August, because it was
How
weird. It's because the only thing that I don't know about you, but I'm vertically challenged. So for the most part, the only thing that I remember seeing about Lackland was the back of somebody else's head, and it's
That's fair. Fair. Yeah, it's very flat. Yeah.
it's very flat. It was interesting going back. Of course, for me, it was a lot longer. I'm sure that for you, but it brought back. I actually stood in the same place where I was squad leader. They had the little dots on the on the
Underneath.
yeah,
Under.
underneath, and because they still have a couple of those like old 70s squadron buildings still up there. I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's.
what we were in. Yeah, broken
Uh,
AC. It was harder than heck. Yep.
do you remember which squadron? I was 3708. Do you remember?
Don't remember. My dad has like the best memory for like every little detail of life. Like, whoop. Yeah, right over my head.
Well, this episode is not about talking about
It's
Lackland.
good.
So
It's good.
otherwise, we're going to get totally derailed. It's like, oh, everybody stay secure. That's all we talked about. Go on with your story, please.
No, I mean, long story short, I joined the Air Force to better my chances of being a firefighter.
Hmm.
Um, but first duty station, I got sent to Vandenberg, and then back, for training, and then went off to Buckley Air Force Base. And yeah, I was a satellite systems operator, and I was like, man, I really like technology. Like I loved learning about ground systems. I loved learning about satellites and constellations, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. But I still had that itch to be a fireman. So I went and, during the day I was working at Buckley Air Force Base, and then at night I was working at Franktown Fire Department. And that was the ongoing route. So anyways, did my 4 years there, got out, and moved to Vegas. And it was actually the only place I could afford, to be honest. Like getting out of the military, I'm sure as you've experienced, Greg, is like, it's either good or bad. And for me, it was hard because you were used to like having structure and being part of a great organization. And then now you're trying to find your place, outside, making just as much money as you did as an E4, which was really hard. So I landed, I was a satellite systems operator. I was making $39,000 a year. So it was like barely enough to get by, which sucked. But yeah, I was starting to play with the idea, like, getting back into fire. So applied for like Clark County Fire Department, and almost simultaneously got a job in IT. So started working for Hughes Network Systems. And that's where I started connecting the dots of like networking and satellite operations. And I started to realize, I was like, you know what, like the ADHD that's plagued me my whole life, that people have said like, like you can't pay attention, have you take your meds today? It's actually like benefited me now, because I'm like, wow, I can like paint all of these different pictures in my head of what's going on, and then come up with a solution. So that's when I'd say a big thank you to Hughes Networks in Vegas. I had a great team out there. That's where I very first found that I loved IT. And at that point, I was going to be taking a small pay cut to go back to Clark County Fire. So I kind of gave up the dream of being a firefighter, because I started to realize it wasn't what I really wanted. It was just kind of the path that I thought I wanted to go on, if that makes sense. But yeah, so spent some time there, and then the Department of Energy contacted me. Started working for them out in the desert, and my clearance, I had a TSSCI in the Air Force, got changed over to a DOEQ. So that was interesting, and that's where my start in cyber began. They essentially told me it would take us less time to like spin you up as a passionate cyber professional than to hire someone who's already essentially a hacker and get them a clearance. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was interested, like it was I'd say the time where like being a hacker was very mystical, right? So it was like it had this pizzazz to it. So yeah, that's where it began, was working for the National Nuclear Security Administration, and basically we were a SOC for all the nuclear laboratories. So it was very fun. I learned a ton of stuff there, and I remember asking the dumbest questions, because like there were things that I hadn't learned in just the basic IT space. Like, what's the difference between like a URL and a domain, right? Like something so simple, but in my mind, no question is ever a dumb question. And I would always treat people that way. Like, because if you don't understand the very basics of something, how are you going to build upon it to have something, or become a subject matter expert of something?
Exactly.
So, yeah. So anyways, let's fast forward quicker. NNSA pushed me back. The Air Force was looking for what they called was a pink-toed unicorn, because they needed someone that understood like satellite and ground systems, but also was like deeply enriched in cybersecurity. So I was like, hey, I'm your guy. Like, what's going on? And it brought me back to California. So yeah, I grew up here. I grew up in San Dimas. So, but anyways, yeah, worked at LA Space Force Base, starting to implement, cybersecurity and to various satellite and ground systems, and left there to work for the MEP program for California, the NIST MEP program. So at that time, it was a company called CMTC, and yeah, we grew a great team. Had a lot of different cool people. We started implementing NIST 171, focusing on DFAR 7012. And it was all on like federally funded projects. So got to see a lot of different like defense manufacturers and how they operate. And then Stanley Black & Decker had recently acquired a ton of defense manufacturers, and that's what brought me over to the Stanley ship. So started off essentially as a BISO. I was a senior manager, but I was running all of their cybersecurity for all of their defense business units. And then as CISOs changed out, I got moved into corporate, and was working on security architecture at first, and then moved over into essentially back to the SOC. Like they discovered that, like, hey, like you used to run a SOC, or and next thing you knew, I was running security operations for Stanley Black & Decker. So yeah, and then I jokingly started RD3 Technologies. I say jokingly because like it was March of 23. Just wanted to start a business, maybe make some money here and there on the side. And it was sometime, last year that I just realized, like, I need to go full force on this. Like, this is what I enjoy most. Like, I'm passionate about my teams. I'm passionate about my people. And I'm definitely passionate about the defense industrial base. So that's the route I wanted to go. I realized, like, I wasn't passionate about just being in corporate America. Even if I always tell people this, I'm like, man, if Taco Bell was going to pay me $1 million a year to keep their bean secret, it wouldn't be my gig, right? Because I'm not passionate about that. I'm passionate about the war fighter. I loved, being in uniform, and I feel like I have that alignment here with our clients and the defense industrial base. So that's where I'm at now.
So you touched on one thing that I thought was important for those who are like plotting their career path to understand, and that is that you had your vision of wanting to be a firefighter, and then at some point in time you let go of that vision because you came to the realization that it's like, well, I'm actually enjoying this IT stuff. I don't really have a question associated with that. I just think that it's so important for people to realize that you don't have to be locked into what you think your future was going to be. I mean, my undergraduate degree is in mechanical engineering, and I started working in IT while I was going to school. And here I am. I never did anything mechanical engineering, and I have zero regrets. It's like I just followed the flow.
Yeah, no regrets, as they say in that movie. That's funny. No, I'm with you on that. Looking back, and my wife says this too. She's like, "You're too ADHD to have enjoyed being a fireman." There's a lot of downtime, right? Like cleaning the rigs and like prepping and training. I enjoyed being a fireman, but you know what really like got my niche was networking, understanding like the bits and how it makes an IP address and subnets and how I started just nerding out and my whole life I've like fought myself to be or not to be the like classical nerd, right? But like I was in band. I realized that like nerd was just in there my whole life, you know what I mean? And like I just started enjoying it so much.
Somewhere along the time, being a nerd became cool and also quite profitable.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, and that's where like I think the coolest part too was IT and cyber is profitable, but I ran into so many people that are like, I want to get in cyber like you, and you're like, why? And like, because I want to make bank, bro. Like I've heard that so many times.
That's not the right reason.
That is such the wrong reason because, in my opinion, like I envy like a medical doctor, and people are like, why would you say that, right? It's like, well, because their environment's not changing every single day. Like we learn something and we go to bed a subject matter expert, and we wake up knowing nothing again. And you're like, I didn't even know that was possible, right? I didn't even, so we're constantly fighting to stay ahead. And if you don't love learning, you're going to hate cybersecurity because it's constantly a changing.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, you can't exist in this field if you want to be static. And I totally agree with you. And I've said this before on the podcast as well, too, that it's like, if your why for entering into the information security or cybersecurity space is to make good coin, don't do it. You have to have the passion. And that's why the industry is as it is. It's saturated with a lot of folks that, unfortunately, the ones that I think are going to be and who have had the worst luck, if you will, as far as like advancing, are those that really don't have the passion. If you have a passion for anything, you'll figure out a way to make it work.
Oh Oh yeah.
But along those lines, I've noticed this, and you said something else I wanted to touch on. That I see a lot of jobs, particularly in the DoD, or I guess DOW. I don't know if that's if now we have to say that.
Yeah, I say the same
You
thing.
know, it's like it'll change probably with the next administration. I don't get into that, um, but you mentioned about clearance, and I think I'm paraphrasing. I think what you said, but it was something along the lines of that it was easier to hire someone with clearance and train them to be a hacker than it was to hire a hacker and get them clearance. First of all,
Correct.
do I have that correctly? And second of all, what does that mean for people that don't have clearance, that were never in the military, that maybe want to go for a job or be in this defense industry based space?
That is correct. So yeah, that's exactly what I was told. And it was weird. I think it was because it was such a unique clearance. Like getting a secret, okay, getting a top secret, a little harder, but going to a DOE Q level is like it's like
Oh,
above a top secret.
okay. I didn't catch that part. All right.
Yeah. So it was the transfer of a top secret from the Department of Defense over to a Q clearance from the Department of Energy. There are goofballs that think because you had a Q clearance you were part of QAnon. Remember that whole QAnon stuff in the back in the day? Not
Yes.
true. Nothing totally different, right? Like the DOE has just different clearances than the DoD. Like the secret in DoD is an L in the DOE. So it's like it's just because there's different data existing there. So, but yeah, no, I think I got lucky. Is really all that it pertains to. A lot of people, in my opinion, want to break into the cybersecurity field, but they don't want to do the time. Like, they, you know, I would advise everyone to go read a book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I feel like when I read that book, it really helped me focus on where I wanted to work. And that's why I say like my passion is in the defense industrial base. After reading that book, that's when I realized like the dreams of just being a CISO for a Fortune 500 company would have made me miserable because it wasn't my why. It wasn't strongly aligned with just any Fortune 500 company. So, but people need to be able to put in the time. There's tons of government programs to be able to go work for, and you're going to learn from the best people with the best tools. And people talk smack about government workers and sometimes federal contractors, but you know what? If you're a government worker who's in the cybersecurity space, especially in the FBI, you're not paid very much, and you're there because you want to be there and you love to be there and you want to serve your nation. So those are the best people to work from. Some of the best people I learned from were working for the IARC, and the NNSA at that time, and it really hit the NOS button on my learning path. I got sent to school because we had to be certified to a standard. So I got sent to school to just do Security Plus at that time, to do CEH, and yeah, I mean it was just day in day out, ones and zeros, IP addresses, syslogs. Like it was great.
No, I completely agree with you. From my experience, that learning from folks that are working in government, and for the majority of like at least the first half of my career, I say that was me as well too. Although mine was like I was working state government at universities, state-run universities. But so a lot of the the pay was nothing like you would get out in the private sector, but the opportunity to learn in all these different environments and to learn from people who are really passionate was second to none. But that kind of gets me to the point of you have an interesting perspective. You've worked both in private sector and government organizations, and I would imagine that they both approach risk in similar and in some ways different ways. I mean, obviously, if you're talking government, you've got an awful awful lot more acronyms, it seems
Oh
like.
yeah,
I mean, our industry is full of them, but then you layer the government acronyms
yeah.
on. But what are some of the similarities and differences between private sector and government as they approach information security risk?
When you work for the government, I felt like even as a contractor, right? Like the only federal government work I really did was in the United States Air Force. Everything else was contractor.
Mm-hmm.
But what I noticed in the government space was that you were seen more as an asset. You were treated as an asset because you're fighting nation state actors and legit advanced persistent threats. So working with 3-letter agencies, pulling in tactics, techniques, procedures, things that are going on, and trying to stay ahead of your enemy essentially. It was very mission focused. I liked that, and you were treated very well. Not to say that you're not treated well in the corporate space. That's probably what it makes it sound like I'm saying, but it was just like very mission focused, and I enjoyed that. Corporate America really changed my perspective of cybersecurity. Being in the military, you're constantly pivoting, right? Like you're constantly like adapting to your surroundings, and I think that really helped me in corporate America because I quickly realized I wasn't necessarily an asset, I was an expense, right? And the purpose of corporate America is to be profitable. And when you look at it from a business perspective, I think it's very important. I don't think the fact that you're an expense is a bad thing, but you have to look at it from the business perspective. What is the business? What is their goal? What is their mission, right? Like, if we go back to like my Taco Bell scenario, right, with the bean secrets, right? Like their goal is to make food and serve it to the public, and that's their profit. So if your job is to keep their system secure, they're not looking at you as someone who's keeping them in business because their factories are allowed to operate. They're looking at you as an expense because it's kind of a necessity, right? If you look at like stock options and the people that are buying into your company, they want to see cybersecurity. So that's why you're there. And I'm not saying that all corporate America companies are like that, but I would say a majority are. A majority are really just focused on their mission.
And you shed light on a very important thing that people need to understand, particularly as you go further up the food chain, if you will, in information security. If you get into more of the governance and the leadership side, is that you really have to understand the business, because that is what you're supporting. It's for me, my first corporate job, if you will, after being in state school, was working for a bank. And the most important metric for a bank is something called the efficiency ratio. How much does it cost to make a dollar? And if I'm remembering correctly, the sweet spot for that is like maybe around 70 cents. So, you spend 70 cents, you earn a dollar, something like that. And I never considered that before. I never considered it's like, okay, the bank, I mean, they're just involved in exchanging money. They're good things. They help people get money. I like money. I think that's another Adam Sandler thing. I don't know. It's like money's good. What is it? This is from Wedding Singer, I think. But that's an important that's certainly an important thing to understand as well. I want to ask you one more thing before I forget, because particularly those who have started their own business, what's one piece of advice outside of the book that you mentioned? What's one piece of advice that you would give folks who are considering starting their business or a business to help them be successful? Because I know a lot of folks are considering that. I get that question a lot myself, but I'd like to hear your take on it.
For sure. And this is just my perspective. They say like opinions are like belly buttons, we'll say. For me, I think you need to find a niche that you're very passionate about first. Like you can't just be like, I want to start an IT company to start an IT company, or I want to start a cybersecurity company to start a cybersecurity company. And if you're in the field, that can mean a lot of things. Like cybersecurity is if you break it and fractionalize it, there's so many different career fields you could get into. Like security operations center versus a GRC shop, completely different, right? There'll be similarities, but this, again, my perspective is that you should focus on what you're passionate about, and then really like build the business based on like a necessity, like something that someone really needs. Because if you go in thinking like, well, everyone needs IT, that's not a good perspective. Like, you're not going to just like start closing clients. And if you're looking to replace a job, you can always replace a job, but then you're working for yourself and managing the books, and it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. What you have to focus on is like being able to actually build an enterprise, and yeah, my mind's going in so many different directions. I guess at its core, I think a lot of businesses fail because they focus too much on like the name of the business, the branding of the business, the mission and vision statement, and that's all like what they're so passionate about, when in reality you need to be passionate about what you're delivering.
Yeah, the product. I mean, what are you doing? What is your core competency, and how are you delivering it? All the other stuff, your mission statement, your declaration of principles, your guiding principles. It's like, I mean, I don't mind saying this, but I worked for one person that was more interested in like security program theater, and like asking me like, what are the guiding principles? What the heck are you talking about? The guiding principles is not to lose our information. I don't need to like have it in some flowery statement or whatever. Let me get to my work and all of that. And so that sort of stuff, people got to understand that being an entrepreneur, particularly in this field, is very stressful as well too. And if you're not doing it right, if you go in it for the wrong reasons, you're going to exponentially increase your stress. But if you're doing it the right way, you still have stress. So I ask you, Robert, what's one of the things that you do to help decompress from all the stresses, both in our field and being an entrepreneur?
Well, I thought working for corporate America was pretty stressful. And then I started my own business, right? And I realized like, wow, this is way more stressful.
Amen, brother.
I had all of the stresses. I still have all of the stresses that I did in corporate America, but now it's like I have to be able to make payroll. And
No. There's one important one. I have to disagree with you. The one thing that you don't have now that you do have in corporate America is control over your time. You don't have to like all of the meetings that you go to in corporate America. It's like suddenly when you're billing your time to your clients, those meetings become like a lot more efficient. That's just my opinion. So
no, I agree with that. Yeah, like cameras on always, even if all of your clients have their cameras off. Like I agree with you. Like I always tell our team that like, we're not just selling a product. Like what we're doing is we're selling a feeling. Like our clients need to feel secure when they talk to us. I think that's very important because we can know everything about everything in the cybersecurity field, but if you can't portray that into a feeling for the client, they're not going to understand like why they should hire you or trust you, right? When I worked for the NIST MEP, there was a book that we read called The Trusted Advisor, right? And you want to be the trusted advisor. Like we're not here to spend your money. I know we're an expense, but like your spend is in our best interest as well. Like we want to keep it low, right? Do the most amount of capability for the least amount of money. I feel like I'm getting sidetracked from your.
Yeah. What do you do to decompress?
Yeah, sorry. I really enjoy playing ice hockey. So people always see the business in the front, but they never see the party in the back. Well, you're just talking about this. Hey, that's an epic.
But I don't play hockey though, so I just got the cut.
Spending time with my family is what helps me the most. It really makes me sit back and realize like how blessed I am. My life pretty much exists with church. I think God's a pivotal point in my life.
Absolutely.
It's when I stress out, I can just put it all back on him.
Give it to God.
So I thank Jesus for his love there. And
Amen.
my kids are just a spitting example of that, right? Like, so it really, that's, if my kids wanted to do theater, like I would be into theater. That's, my kids just happen to enjoy ice hockey. I wanted them to be dirt bike stars, but they chose the hockey path, and I love hockey. I've played my whole life. So, anyways, yeah, we get on the ice. Like, we're gonna go tonight. Me and the boys. My kids are 10 and 8, so just go, check them, throw them down. I like getting physical. And when you get off the ice and you just feel refreshed and your mind is clear. I would say that's what I enjoy the most. I used to enjoy shooting a lot, but it gets expensive. So
Well, if we were to do Family Feud, it's like 100 people surveyed, top 5 answers on the board, and number 1 and number 2, and I don't know which order, but they were about the same, would be family and faith. So it's like whenever I ask the question. But I've gotten some odd ones. I've had a couple of beekeepers, and I'm like, how can being a beekeeper make you less stressful? That would tend to freak me out.
I get the grounding stuff. It's like I find, like, there was different points in my life, but I remember gardening being a really cool, like planting something and watching it grow over days. Was very calming. And like I was like I would start telling everybody about my strawberries and like the onions I'm growing and the cherry tree that I've started growing, and that was nice. And then on the flip side, I can see that because like I'm an adrenaline junkie, so like there's something peaceful about like that adrenaline release, like whether it's being on the racetrack or flying down a hill on a mountain bike. I could see that. There's probably some peace in beekeeping.
What future plans you got for either you or the company or both?
Yeah. I'd say the hardest part about being a business owner, and I'm sure a lot of business owners will agree with this, is that you always have a voice in the back of your head that's just like, throw in the towel, like just throw it in. And you're like, and you realize like, no, I got to keep grinding. There's people that rely on us, like putting food on their table and growing their empires. So you just got to fight through that as a business owner, But
yeah, because it will be cyclical too. It's like, I mean, and when you're at the high, don't neglect the stuff that got you up there. I remember one person gave me this advice very early on. He had owned a couple of businesses himself. It's like, he said that when he was fully engaged and he was just an independent consultant working for himself at this point in time in his life, he'd be like, he neglected marketing. So he didn't like speak at conferences. He didn't do anything. And then those dried up. And then suddenly he didn't have anything in the pipeline. It's like, no, you got to keep working on that side that got you up there. Otherwise, this is going to come real fast because clients do not last forever. And that's okay. That's a good thing. That's the way it's supposed to be. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd say we're kind of in that boat right now. Like I don't do any marketing. I used to speak at conferences a lot when I was working for corporate America. But I've kind of like slowly let that go down because, I'd say a bulk of our clients coming through partnerships, like word of mouth. So like, I guess I do market. I lie.
This is marketing right here, right now too. I mean, so.
Yeah, I agree. But it's relationships. I think anyone on my team's passionate about is just people, like just building relationships. Because, at our core, when you talk to your clients, it's like, hey, John, how's your baby going? How's your baby doing? Like, I think, but like being legit about it, like not just being a sales turd. Like I can't stand salespeople. It's like you have to be genuinely passionate about the person. And I think maybe that comes back to the faith, is that like, you see the person before anything else, right?
Yeah. And actually, that's what I've always historically tried to do with sales, is just like, well, they just have a different why. And some are good at it, some not so good. But it's like, I understand. You get a salesperson that's trying to push product on me before understanding my problem. That never works. And I'm not a salesperson myself. And I tell people up front when we have our discovery calls that I'm not a salesperson. But then again, I am a salesperson by saying that in some ways. It's like, I think the most authentic you can be is like, you don't sell your brand, you just talk about your brand, you talk about yourself. and like you said, relationships, because this connection, you know, that matters. That's what drives
I
everything.
agree. You know, someone said it best actually just yesterday, and I realized like a buddy of mine has it on his his title. I think it says like cybersecurity evangelist, which I thought that was a joke, right? Because evangelizing to me always meant something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And someone just told me yesterday, they're like, I love working with you. You're an evangelist. And I was like, what does that mean, right? What does that mean? And it was like, he was like, you know, just because you're so passionate about a topic, it brings joy to the people you're talking to. Like they start to believe in your why. And like, and at that point, you're not really selling anything, even though you are. Like to your point, Greg, like it's like I'm allergic to sales. I hate sales. But like I'll talk about cybersecurity all day, right? Like I love the topic. And when you get people to start like understanding and caring, I think that's a good point, right? Like my dad used to always say, if you can't explain it to your mom and her understand what you're saying, not that my
Mm-hmm.
mom's stupid, my mom's incredibly smart. But all I'm getting at is if she knows nothing about what I'm saying and I can't explain it to her, then I don't actually know what I'm talking about. And I
Right,
think
that's
that's
like the elevator speech type thing. If you can't explain it within like 15 floors, then you don't understand it. So
yeah.
I totally agree.
Yep.
Robert, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with
Thank
you.
you.
I always think whenever I do these things, I'm like, maybe one of these years I'll make them an hour long, because it always tends to be a lot more to talk about. But
Yep.
at the least, maybe we'll have you back and have another discussion, get into some of these other
Alrighty.
things. Well, I appreciate your time.
All right, brother. Thank you.
And everybody stay secure.